Um, Alaska to me is just, it's amazing. Isn't most of it above the tree line, actually?
Uh, the areas that I went in were around Anchorage, which is like the capital.
Okay.
And being somebody from the United States, from California, from we're really big into our big wide open spaces here in America.
Uh-huh.
And I've been to Montana and I've been all over the United States. And one thing that strikes you about Alaska is how epically huge it is.
Uh-huh.
Like my sister lives up there with her husband, and it it's like, yeah, there's this great place we want to go for lunch. Okay, it's like an hour and a half car ride at like 70 miles an hour. It's like it every car up there has like, oh, it's a 5-year-old truck with 250,000 miles on it, because everything is so
Exactly.
far out and so spread that it's like even going to town to like go to like a normal grocery store is like a 45-minute ordeal. Like, most people drive 5 minutes down the block. It's the
Yeah.
equivalent to them. And because I went to go see like a real glacier and walk on a real glacier, and went to go see these mountains and old abandoned mines and all the cool stuff. But it was just
Uh-huh.
like, because I was there for a little over a week, around 9 days, and it was just like by the seventh or eighth day, my sister was like, "Well, let's go here and let's do this." And my dad, who went with me, we're kind of tired of being in a car, And the other thing that strikes you is everywhere you look is a goddamn postcard. Like everywhere is a postcard. Like
Of
you're at a gas
course.
station and you turn
Uh-huh.
around and there's just like beautiful green trees, go to like the rolling green hills, to like this epic mountain with like
You
snow-capped
you
peaks.
grow cold to it, right? That's something I know. I live in just outside of London, a place called Surrey. But when
Right.
I worked in central London for 9 years, and every day I get off the tube and I walk past, through Waterloo. I walk past the National Gallery, and I cross the bridge facing Westminster, and the House of Lords and the House of Parliament, and I walk
Right,
past
right.
the National Gallery and Trafalgar Square and the Palace, and then I sort of head up to work. And sometimes I see people looking at those things and think, meh, it's kind of like, yeah, it's just another landmark. It was the same
Well,
when I lived in Barcelona, which is,
oh yeah.
it's literally a city. This was many years ago now, in the early noughties, built by crazy architects. Essentially, every street has got some new hidden what's it. And I lived exactly facing the uh, Sagrada Familia, the big church, the Gaudi church, and my tube station on my metro was underneath it. So every morning I walked up to it and got on the tube,
Wow.
in the hustle and bustle and the normal sort of everyday mundane commute, and I just thought, well, it's a growing familiar, whatever. I guess it
Well,
grows old.
yeah. Well, I've never been outside of the continent of the United States. I've been to Canada, I've been to Hawaii, I've been to Mexico, but I've never been to Europe. And it's one of those things where, as my daughter gets older, I definitely want to go. I definitely want to see England and France and do all the
Oh
touristy
yeah,
stuff, but also want to get out there and you know see the countryside. And it's really crazy when friends of mine go to like when they go to the UK or Ireland, Scotland, anywhere in there, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's the new pub. It's only 200 years old. That's the old pub. The old pub is 1,500 years old." And it's like,
okay.
what? Yeah, because it's like everything here in America, is fairly recent. But it's kind of funny how you were saying um, when you get a little bit out of town, because here, like in Washington D.C., have you ever been to the United States?
I was there just recently, actually. In September, I was in Portland, in Maine, and
Oh, okay, yeah.
then I was in Vermont at Lake Champlain looking for Champ, and then I went to Kentucky for Crypticons. I was speaking and doing a
Oh,
few
excellent.
investigations. Yeah, first time also to the US, and I loved it actually.
Um, well, one thing that strikes you if you go to Washington D.C., the Capitol building and the
Ah,
White House, and you go at half hour, 45 minutes out of Washington D.C. proper, and you're like in Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland,
yeah,
and it's like completely different.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
all rolling hills and countrysides and some of the thickest woods you've ever seen, and
Oh
it's
wow, yeah.
yeah, it's really quite a contrast.
Well,
So
some of those flights I had when I on the way to the US, there was a big storm, and I had to land in Florida, in Orlando, and stay there overnight. And they put me up in this nice hotel, and it was just kind of funny because I got off the plane and this wet blanket of air hit me.
What time of
It's
year were
just
you in Florida? Because I've been there quite a few times.
September. I was 30th of
Oh,
August.
oh
I
yeah, yeah.
arrived actually. Yeah, and it was just this wet
So,
blanket of air. Now I'm used to heat, but not heat and wet at the same time.
right.
Heat and moisture. Yeah.
It's quite a contrast. As somebody from the Southwest, from the Old West, from the desert, spent
Mm.
a lot of time in Southern California, Arizona, Mexico,
Oh yeah.
New Mexico, the desert. It's used to this really dry, oppressive heat. Then
Yeah.
you go to Florida, and yeah, you're right. It's like a wet blanket, and there's
Oh, it was
lizards and
crazy.
frogs hopping around. Everything
Yeah.
smells slightly moldy.
It
Yeah,
did a little. I mean, it was just as we landed, there was just water everywhere, and
it's
there was even this what they called a pond at the back of this beautiful hotel with a swimming pool, and there were deck chairs and hammocks out by this pond, and a bunch of which was in fact like a lake to me, but they said it was a pond. There was a bunch of beware of the alligator, no swimming signs all
oh
along this
yeah.
pond. There was no fence.
Oh no,
I
no,
said
no.
to the lady, so I sit here in this deck chair at the end of the pond. What happens if an alligator comes out? She said, well, you should run, get into a tree if you can't get away. I said, that's your advice. I said, how about a fence?
Well,
You know it's there.
it, one thing in spending time in Florida is like every little drainage ditch and every little
Yeah,
pond and golf course. If it's like 8 by 10 and has water in it, there's probably
yeah,
a gator. It's probably a gator
yeah,
in there at one time or another. It's really, yeah.
yeah.
I like Florida. Florida's kind of like the butt of our jokes, and like here in the United States
Oh,
for
really?
for hillbilly, redneck, white trash
And
kind of stuff.
retirement
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Florida shoes, as I say, there's the Florida shoes, right? These golf shoes that people wear.
right. But I think Florida's cool. I've been to Orlando and Tampa and a whole bunch of different areas, and I've still got family that live near Miami and everything else. Florida's cool. It's another one of those states where you have the Keys and you've got all the dry desert kind of beaches down there, and like the whole Caribbean feel
Yeah,
going on up to swamps. And yeah, Florida's a cool place. I mean, that's the home of the skunk ape. The
well,
famous.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, I'd love that photo, that famous photo. As you described the more ape, look, the orangutan
Yeah,
type of
the Mayaka skunk ape type. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that was very, very interesting. I listened actually very closely several times to 10 types of Bigfoot, and some I've subscribed to on YouTube. So a few other things you've done, and you may or may not be aware, but there's hundreds of British Bigfoot reports. And that's led by a group called the British Bigfoot Research Group, and a few other groups dotted around. But I'm part of that essentially, or that's one of the things I look for here, and a lot
Hello.
of it just really did intrigue me. Have you still got me?
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hold
Oh, we
on
had a
one. Yeah.
okay.
Hold on 1 second. I'm on Wi-Fi calling. Let me just go straight to
Uh,
over the air here and
oh yeah.
shit.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Oh, great, fantastic.
Okay.
But you know
Yeah.
what? With regards to Skype, what my wife always says is the problem when something is free is that you can't complain.
Well, we're Americans. We still complain.
Well,
So,
so do people too. So talking about things like Bigfoot and whatnot in your talk, a lot of people say that the British Bigfoot is, or woodwose is more similar to the almas, the almasti, which is like your type 4, isn't it? And
yeah. I think when it comes to the almas, I did a video on it a while back in Russia. What I've discovered looking into it is there's so much more nuance to the Bigfoot thing than I think people realize. Like, oh yeah, like there's a Bigfoot, but you start breaking down to different types. Like when you say the Ohio grassman, well, okay, that's Ohio. That's a state in the United States, and there's a lot of wooded area,
mhm.
but they've got the big type 1, the patty type Bigfoots that you classically think of. They have wood boogers, and then they have other stuff going on too.
Huh.
So it seems to be kind of like that same thing with Russia with the Almas. There are reports of a big Yeti type, like your classic 7, 8, 9, 10 foot tall,
Okay.
giant, like looks like the Incredible Hulk Bigfoot sightings, but they also get a lot of something that looks more like a Neanderthal, something that looks more like a, like some kind of pre-human or early human, but bigger and more stout. Maybe something more like a Homo heidelbergensis or something. So, so when you talk about the Russian Almas, it's like there really seems to be a couple of things going on, and that kind of seems to be the case all over the places. You can't just say there's one type of Bigfoot in one place. There seems to be a lot of bleed.
The way I think about that, and people sometimes try to pick that apart and say, well, these accounts aren't synonymous. They don't have lots of correlation. And I say, well, there's the same kind of creature in different environments, like you've just pointed out, in the same way as a polar bear, black bear, brown bear, grizzly, Kodiak, moon bear are all bears essentially, aren't they? But they look different in different environments.
Well, yeah, and you can have black bears and grizzly bears in the same area, and you can have grizzly bears and polar bears in the same area. And like if you look at like Yellowstone National Park, you've got coyotes, wolves, mountain lions, grizzly bears, and black bears all inhabiting the same area. Not to mention like bobcats and lynx. That's a lot of different like apex predator species all in the same area, all competing with each other and all, doing in the same area. So Sasquatch and their different variations, it kind of only makes sense.
I mean, that's obviously a really, really rich ecosystem. When it comes to the UK here, the problem with some of the reports is, and I've never said this before, but the problem is there's a lack of Bigfoot on the brain. So when people make reports about what they've seen, they use what's in their mental library to describe the creature as it seemed to them. But I don't think it's a speciation description like your type 1, 2, 3, 4. It's more like I saw a giant chimpanzee on two legs run across the road chasing a deer, or it was like a huge orangutan with a flat face, 7 feet tall, and things like that. And those who do describe a bit more detail either describe this, as they say, man-ape almost type face, or they describe something that's far more simian. So I had a report from a primate keeper, actually, as a primate zookeeper of 37 years. Wow. He's a very experienced guy. He was up in Strathspey Forest in Scotland, not too far from Loch Ness, actually, as a crow flies, in 2012 with his brother. And they were hunting for rabbits and things. They go wild camping once a year together. That was their tradition. And they were hunting early in the morning. He said his brother's very heavy on his feet, so he always keeps him a little way behind him. And he suddenly he didn't hear his footsteps anymore. And he looked back to see his brother's mouth agape and staring at some big black shape in these blackberry bushes about 50 feet away. And there was this huge mound about 5 foot tall, all black and furry, like a bear of some kind. And then it stood up and turned around, and it was 7 feet tall. And he said he met its eyes, and this is a man who's worked with orangs, he's worked with gorillas and chimps and all kinds of apes and monkeys. And he said it was like, to me, it was aged, it was balding slightly on top. It was like an old bonobo chimp, but with a huge gorilla's body, upright, but with a flat muzzle or nearly no muzzle, almost no muzzle, almost completely flat around that area.
That's fascinating.
It's fascinating because how do you fool this guy? We don't have any bears at all. We haven't had them for hundreds of years. So how do you fool him? That's my
and that's a really great encounter, because everybody says, how come there's no professionals or an expert or something like that? And you have like Dr. Jeff Meldrum and anthropologists and stuff that are into this, that occasionally do field work, but to have somebody who works, I would consider that an expert, spent his whole life working with primate, witnesses a Bigfoot creature. I mean, to me, that's like, it doesn't really get any better than that, because they can really describe, behavior, they can describe the physicality, they can describe, like the types of noses and ears and eyes, and, they've got a really good perspective on it.
It was very interesting, and one of the things he pointed out, which was very strange to me as well, he said, I know there's a lot of split opinion on this particular creature, and maybe this is my bias, but what I saw, it definitely seemed simian, and not like some kind of man ape cross, and that's always, this we're all wondering, what this creature is, aren't we? And he said this was definitely a simian creature, but like a
Right.
huge gorilla, stood up, a bear around the top of the chest slightly, 7 feet tall, with this old bonobo like face with his flat muzzle. And I thought, wow, that's, it's huge. And he's still a zookeeper, so he's off the record he's on the record
Right.
off the record. We're using
Right.
a slightly different name for him. And that kind of thing, like I say, it's amazing. I actually, one of the conferences I was speaking at in Maine, International Cryptozoology Conference, I had dinner with Jeff Meldrum, and I spoke to him about this actually. It was
Yeah,
a
he's a
bunch
cool
of
guy. He's very approachable.
He
So
was very, very approachable, and I'd spent the whole time trying not to ask him about Todd Standing. I bumped into him in the lift in the morning, and this light went on in my head, said, "Don't ask Jeff about Todd, Andy. Whatever you do, just don't mention it."
yeah,
And
that's kind of a that's kind of a dirty word around me. So
yeah, well, no, I mean, I know that people are really stood on it and everything, and I didn't ask him about Todd. Eventually, we were all at dinner, and somebody said to him, "So, Jeff, who is this Todd everybody's talking about?" And I said to the person, "I'm sure Jeff doesn't want to talk about Todd Standing." And that person said to me, "Not Todd Standing, Todd Dissetel, the geneticist, the DNA
oh,
geneticist who was
okay.
at the conference." And then Jeff said, "Well, I don't mind talking about Todd Standing." And he talked to us about it for about 35 minutes. Um, and he basically said, "Look, I got a lot of flack for working with the guy, and he's a good guy, he's a nice guy, and although as a scientist I can't go on the record and say, this is real and that is not, I definitely had an experience out there with him,
Oh
and
yeah.
I definitely saw something, and I give him credit. He's a great outdoorsman. He's got a lot of rumors about his wife doing all of this FX, and actually she's just a beautician. She's not a
Right.
makeup artist, and there's lots of things, of course.
Right.
He
Well,
agreed with me that Todd just kind of presents badly,
right.
mostly.
Well,
Although I'm
um,
still on the fence about the whole thing, to be honest with you.
right. Well, it's like I will give credit where credit is due. I'm not one of those people where I think everything in life is gray. There's no black and white. And I won't just
Yeah.
say everything Todd's doing is terrible and I disagree with the guy or don't
Mm.
like the guy. No, no, no. The opposite. I think that he has collected some very good evidence, like some of his track cast, some of his recordings, some of his nighttime things and FLIR imaging, and some of the sounds he recorded. The
Yeah.
area that he researches in is definitely like prime Sasquatch habitat, and I
Oh.
feel he's really collected some good evidence. The only problem I have is some of his photo evidence. I just I don't necessarily believe, or I'm not convinced.
Uh-huh.
I'll leave it at that. So, not that I don't like all of his evidence, not that I don't like what he's trying to do. But with Todd Standing, it's more of like I'm just not 100% convinced with everything. But I
Something
will say
feels
he
off.
does have a lot of intriguing
Yeah,
stuff,
he
and
does.
he yeah, he does kind of put off the, as we call it, kind of like the Marlboro man. I was trained by sniper special forces,
I
and
don't know what
I'm
that whole
crashing
thing's
around
called.
in an ATV. And for me, the people I go bigfooting with and the people I hang out with, like we go out in the woods,
Yeah,
we be quiet, we hang out, we listen,
yeah,
we observe, and for the casual person who's maybe interested in Bigfoot or is not convinced, when they see kind of the persona and show that he puts on, it can be kind of a turn off.
I wondered about this for a long time because it's I thought, does this man just present badly? There's sometimes the easiest way to tell a lie is to mix a lot of truth with it, right?
Right.
So that's
Embellishment. So
that's the appearance I get, that there's a lot of truth in the presentation of what's happened. And it wasn't, I actually didn't really start doubting him until I saw the Discovering Bigfoot documentary, and I saw the devil face Bigfoot. I thought,
that just
hang on
looks
a
like a
second.
guy with
Yeah, hang
latex
on,
makeup on with me. And then when
hang
he
on a
tried
second.
to sue me, that's when I really
He
lost
tried to
all
sue
kind of.
you?
Well, okay, I did a review when my channel was really tiny. I think I had 700 or 800 subscribers. I did a
Wow.
review on his Discovering Bigfoot documentary, and I said I liked some parts of it and other parts I
Yeah.
didn't. I said that parts of his photo evidence I didn't think were believable, although I think some parts of it with Meldrum and Bendernagel and some of the nighttime things I think were good. And I got a lot of hate and a lot of support on both sides.
Yeah, it
Um,
seems that right in the middle.
Yeah, but then and I thought I was being pretty objective. Like, I didn't throw everything out. I just said there were some things like his photo evidence I didn't like. Well, they filed a copyright claim and put a strike against my YouTube channel.
Oh,
And they did this to a bunch of different YouTubers too,
I
who did the
heard
same
about this.
thing.
Yeah.
And then I got emails, and then I got a phone call from Alchemy Studios, who was his production people, that just let it go. Don't try to fight the copyright strike. You use imageries. And I'm like, it's fair use. It's a movie review. How many millions of reviews? Like, literally millions of
Not only
reviews.
that, his images have been all over the internet for 10 years.
Yeah. So I was just like, look, I'm being objective. And the people I spoke to from his friend, I mean, they were nice enough, and they were like, hey, we're not trying to, silence our critics or anything. You just use images without our permission and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And I was just kind of like, well, that guy's kind of off my list.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you totally. I actually had somebody. I had the head of FX for Noah, The Hobbit, and several other big movies. Actually, she's a friend of my wife's, and
Both great
she's
effects in those movies, by the way.
yeah. I mean, she was the head of those departments basically. And I said, look, I know you've got no interest in Bigfoot whatsoever. And then she obviously, she clarified what Bigfoot was to me first and asked me what I meant by that. And I said, could you look at this movie, these points with these creatures, Teddy Bigfoot, Teddy Squatch, the junior one that's supposed to be him in the mask, and then the one at
The
the
Muppet,
end,
the
Muppet, Teddy Squatch, and the Devil Squatch. I said, could you just give me a review of it as a special effects person to say, could this be done? And if so, what's the kind of quality that we're looking at here, if it could be done? And she looked at it and she came back and she said, I did a blog about it actually. It was called Standing Alone, All on His Todd. So, and anyway, so she reviewed it and she said, look, this could be done, especially since they don't move very much. You could get models and even with makeup and you get things layered on top and even 2D layering. You could layer the leaves 2D on top, with that out of focus bit. It could be done. But she said, I have to point out that the work is of high quality. And the rest of the documentary that he made is not of a similar quality to those first two pieces of work, if they are work. And I thought that was interesting. Either he had some great people do it, he doesn't have them anymore, or he didn't do it. And I think the way he presents will basically always be the answer. You can't ever really come down and say, yeah, I believe you, because of his actions.
Well, and for me, there's one underlying fact. There's a couple things. Other researchers have come forward and other people have said that there were actors that were in those suits that signed non-disclosure agreements and came forward and said, they thought they were making like a mockumentary or like a low-budget film or something. They didn't know that he was going to try to present it. Now, that's all hearsay, and we can just kind of put that aside. The main thing for me that says that those possibly aren't real creatures, that those are not real creatures, is that I've known a lot of people with really good evidence and talked to a lot of people, and as soon as they produce a picture or a video, the video comes down, they get discredited by the government, they get threatened. There's the whole cover-up aspect kicks in. And if there's all these mountains of evidence of there being some kind of a cover-up and a conspiracy and all this different stuff, and somebody came out with the clearest pictures as Todd Standing had, and there was none of that. There was no threats. There was no, ploys to discredit. There was no taking it down. There was no, something coming out. It seemed to me that it was too good to be true.
I think also the reaction of almost the entire Bigfoot community, if you want to call it that, the negative reaction was also very surprising. If this is a real deal, they should be jumping all over this, really. But instead of jumping on it, and that there was something in that as well. But I also put that down to the way he presented.
Right. He's kind of I won't say obnoxious or arrogant. He's a type A personality. He's very boisterous. He's very in your face. And I can be like that sometimes too. So it's not, it's not calling the kettle black. I get it. He's an aggressive guy.
He's the kind of person that would make a good military sniper, right?
He's passionate. He has a lot of drive, but I understand how that puts off a lot of people.
Sure.
And the other thing that gets me is if somebody in the south of the United States, because he was up in Canada, 1,800 miles, 2,000 miles away, says, well,
Yeah.
the Bigfoots in Canada don't look anything like what I saw. You could say, well, fair enough. We know there's a lot of variations. But from my experience, from what all the different types I've documented, and you got to think if the different types are interbreeding, or you got to think of the remote hills and woods of Canada.
Yeah.
From all the different accounts and reports, none of them look like what he was presenting as real. The noses, the eyes, the hair around the face, nobody describes what his look like. Now, if you play devil's advocate and say maybe he found one tribe or one isolated region where his look completely different or something, sure. But that also kind of adds to that, like.
But then he has 3 different appearances, facial appearances of Bigfoot anyway.
Right, and none
granted
of them look
in 3 different areas, but still.
But none of them look like what people are describing as the thing.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's either here nor there, but it's kind of something to consider. I mean, people have been all over the Yukon, Canada, all over northern United States, all over the place, seeing these creatures for thousands of years, going all the way back to the Native Americans. And from the descriptions, none of them had what he was describing. They just didn't have the bulk. They didn't have the ugliness. They didn't have the look of something that was surviving these harsh winters and scrapping it out. They just looked too perfect, too clean, too human-like. They looked very
new.
Yeah, like Planet of the Apes-ish kind of thing.
They look new.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't have scars, and they weren't missing teeth, and they weren't ugly like you would expect one of these creatures to be. But like I said, we could be wrong, and they could be real creatures. I just have my doubts, is what it really comes down to.
Well, so. I'd have to say that, ending that part of the conversation, I don't want to keep you on that too much, but I sort of said I was on the fence at one point, and where I am now, and after that point, I ended up in he faked some of it, and the rest was genuine point. And now I'm just
pretty much where I'm at. So.
Yeah, like there's some good footage in there somewhere for sure.
Right.
But I'm not sure which one it is. It's definitely not the third one, that's for sure.
Are you familiar with the American Sniper story, Chris Kyle?
This isn't the
movie that came out a couple years ago.
No, I'm familiar with the controversy with what's his name, the ex-wrestler actor.
With Jesse Ventura.
Jesse Ventura.
Yeah, well, I think that's a really great example of Chris Kyle, the American Sniper.
Yeah.
He's a war hero. He's the most deadliest sniper in history. He saved a lot of lives. He killed a lot of people. He did some amazing heroic things. But he also got caught lying a number of times.
Yeah.
So it's one of those, like, we have a great heroic person who died a tragic death, who should be saluted, an American hero, but he was caught embellishing and lying on a number of different stories.
Yeah, I'd reframe that to just put it this way, essentially. If you have the mental fortitude, and I'll put it in a positive way instead of a negative way, to kill people through a lens from a distance, many people, I'm sure you could school yourself to 1 or 2 beneficial lies if your career or your financial prosperity depends upon it.
Right. And the point I was trying to make is, to me, he's still an American hero. Did he fib and stretch the truth and everything else?
I get it.
Yes. So it's one of those, once again, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You don't just say, well, he lied about getting in a fight with Jesse Ventura. He lied about being in Hurricane Katrina in the Superdome and shooting people. He lied about being in a number of different places at different times. It's like, okay, it's like the good doesn't wash out the bad doesn't wash out the good, so to speak. So it's kind of like that with Todd Standing. I mean, obviously he's not, he's not Chris Kyle, but it's the same kind of idea as a man who's done some amazing things and gone some amazing places, and maybe just out of frustration after 10 years and probably millions of dollars spent, that all he has is some blurry footage and some footprints and pretty much what everybody else has when they try to research Sasquatch. And maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but maybe he did decide to, I think I'm going to kind of grease the wheel here a little bit and come up with some of my own.
The better.
Yeah. So who knows? To me, that's kind of my assessment
Sure.
is that
Okay.
he's probably got some good stuff, but at the same
Yeah.
time, maybe his ego or something got away with him. But
I
I
mean,
really
there's,
don't know.
yeah, I mean, I think we're probably not saying anything too dissimilar to other people that would just, you just kind of already know. And now, how about yourself? And I know you go there a lot. Have you found anything that's been very intriguing or convincing in this search for prints or captured photographic evidence? What kind of things have kept you going with your personal expeditions?
Well, for me, it's what has really been getting on me lately. The last few months, it bleeds over into some of my videos. Is
Huh.
I think all evidence is great, like what the real conventional guys are doing. Like
Yeah.
track casts are great,
Uh-huh.
handprints are great, tree knocks and tree structures.
Uh-huh.
All that stuff is great, but to me, it's kind of the strange aspect of Bigfoot that's really been getting me. Like in my own personal experiences, I'll spend 1 or 2 days out in the bush, stepping quietly, making sure I don't make a noise, putting myself in cover scent like I'm going hunting,
Oh,
creeping
wow.
around out there in the woods, investigating, going way far back deep in the Sierras, spending all this time and not really getting any action, not getting anything.
Yeah.
Then as I'm like loading up the truck, having a drink of water with the camera sitting on the car seat, not paying attention, I hear something or see something.
Uh-huh.
And to me, the most intriguing part about Bigfoot and this phenomenon, for me personally, I mean, other people have different things happen to them, but for me, time and time again, the minute I let my guard down, where I'm having a beer and grilling a steak while we're camping or something, and kind of out of Bigfoot mode, I hear a knock or the trees go quiet, and I hear something moving around, and you get a creepy feeling, and it's like, really, right here, right now, you know. I was out there all day looking for this thing and I didn't find
Yeah.
it. And for me, that's been so intriguing is like again and again and again, this seems to be happening where it's the closer you try to get to it, the farther you get sometimes. And it's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
and I don't want to say Bigfoot is paranormal or they're a demon or they're interdimensional. I think they're
Uh-huh.
very much a flesh and blood creature. I think they
Same.
eat, they drink,
Yeah.
they go to the bathroom, but there's a quality to these things that just can't be explained. And I mean, you ask me one day and I'll tell you that, well, maybe they're an offshoot of the Nephilim. You ask me another day and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, crap, maybe there's some kind of interdimensional thing. And then another day I'm just like, well, they're just a damn dirty ape that's really sly. So it's, I go back and forth on it. And to me, that's really,
Yeah.
like I find all the evidence intriguing, especially since I started doing these talks for the UFO community, when I did
Uh-huh.
my presentations.
Yeah.
And to me, that was really revealing because if I go talk to a group of people about Bigfoot, just take a random 50 people, I have to spend half the presentation just trying to convince them that exists. And when you
Exactly.
talk to UFO people, when they're all into the different, alien species and all these
Yeah.
different, way beyond a lot of the big stuff as far as high strangeness goes. So when you talk to a lot of UFO people and alien people who are into that about Bigfoot, they don't even bat an eye. They're like, well,
Well, yeah,
yeah, we
exactly.
all think Bigfoot. I mean, the,
What's funny about that actually is the first talk I ever gave about cryptozoology in 2017 was to a UFO conference called Probe in the UK.
okay,
It's a very old UFO conference. Yes, it's been going for a long time.
I've heard of them.
And
So yeah.
yeah, well, my opening line was when I told my wife I was going to be talking about cryptozoology to a bunch of UFO guys. She said, "At last, for once, you'll be the only normal guy in the room."
Well, that's pretty much how I felt about the
Yeah.
conference. Is I did, my hour and a half presentation, which is the first presentation I'd ever given in front of a crowd. I did it 2 nights, one for UPARS LA, the Universal Paranormal Research Group of LA, and then one for MUFON Orange County. And it was the same talk back to back. The first time I'd ever talked to these crowds. The second night, I did way better because I kind of went back and redid some of my slides and kind of had
Yeah.
a better idea of what to say. But the thing that caught me is, here I am talking about 10 different types of Bigfoot when most people would be like, there's one type of Bigfoot. And these
Mm.
guys are telling me about Bigfoots and coyotes being spies for aliens. And, they're a psychic being and they're interdimensional and they're working with different,
Yeah,
alien
agencies.
species.
Yeah.
And I'm just
Yeah.
like, I'm just sitting there like kind of perplexed, like, huh. Wow,
Yeah.
people are asking me these questions, and I'm like, it could be. You
Yeah.
know, but it was really refreshing to, because you know, you talk to skeptics all the time. You just stop somebody at a coffee shop and talk to them about Sasquatch, and they're going to be skeptical. It was really neat to kind of be on the other side of it, where
Well, it's
you
just
know, kind of,
interesting when you talk to
yeah,
somebody that puts you in the skeptical position because they have so much extra belief. I don't like to phrase, maybe that's the wrong phrasing, but they believe in something so much more unusual
right.
and
Well,
extraordinary that what you're saying to them seems quite plausible and reasonable. You just have to go through what you found out.
right. Well, in the UFO world, it's mostly insiders and people coming forward,
Yeah.
and sometimes dubious testimony. And you kind of feel sorry for them because they may have a few blurry photographs and a few kind of redacted documents. But
Yeah.
in the Bigfoot world, it's like we've got prints, we got hair
Yeah.
samples, we've got eyewitnesses. I mean, it's like what kind of evidence do you want? We have it in the Bigfoot world.
Well, I mean, that's something I saw that Jeff wrote actually, when his colleagues criticized him. He said, do figments of imagination, the footprints and casts and hair samples and things like that. Now that's awesome. That's wonderful. In North America, the research is really up there. It's been going for so long, but in the UK, it's a very different situation. So talking about trying to convince people about Bigfoot and having something else to get through first, even in the Bigfoot community, when you talk about Bigfoot here, you have to get through habitat requirements, food, available
Right.
space.
Right.
How could
Well,
something like this live in this really urbanized society? But it's not actually a
well,
very
okay.
urbanized society.
Um, I'll be completely honest with you. Probably years back, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, whenever, but I've always had an interest in Sasquatch. We got really serious in it some years back, and they got really, really serious the last couple of years. Up until a couple of years ago, when people say, oh, yeah, you know, they have Bigfoot sightings in the UK, I'm like, yeah, whatever. It was a guy in a
Yeah.
monkey suit. But then as I started, what's interesting is I started to hear more and more encounters, more
Uh-huh.
and more evidence, and talking to more and more people in the United States, heavily populated areas, places with
They
lots
come
of
right up.
people.
Yeah.
They come right up, and it always amazes me when it's usually newer people that are like, oh, you got to go way back in the hills and very deep
Yeah.
in the woods to
Yeah.
find Bigfoot. And I'm like, no, you don't. You actually probably closer to cities is where you probably have a better chance, because I think from
Green
time to time
corridors. Exactly.
yeah, yeah, and so from that belief in America that these things are being found in places you wouldn't explain, kind of opened my mind to like, well, maybe there is something to the whole British Bigfoot thing. And then after a while, it went from maybe there is something to it to like, oh yeah, I believe that they got him too.
Yeah. I mean, we've got them in our history, the Woodwoes, the Wild Man. They're on our
Oh yeah,
ancient heraldry, and they were actually very, and on our churches, they're carved, and they're very man-ape-like looking creatures. But I actually did a little blog called What's with the Habitude about this particular problem. And in 2012, there was an assessment of the UK. It was a UK National Ecosystem Assessment. And what they discovered actually was 6.8% of UK's total land area could be classified as urban. And that included rural development and roads. And when you break that down amongst the four nations, the Celtic nations, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales as well, which are much more underpopulated than England,
right, right,
even smaller numbers. And then they actually looked at then the 6.8% of the country that was urban, and they found 54% of that was green space, parks, allotments, and gardens, and like little forests and woods and things like that. And because I travel around the UK a lot, and I look into these little nooks and crannies, you see these routes along the motorways. You see this vast expanse of space that nobody's in. But if you live in a city like London or Manchester or Bristol, perhaps, you could be forgiven for thinking that we live in this massive urban environment. Even people here struggle with the concept. I say, no, it's not like that at all.
well,
It's really underpopulated and untenanted for a large proportion of the space that we have anyway.
well, and it's kind of the same thing like in Los Angeles, the city close by to me. I mean, there's like 15 million people in the greater Los Angeles area,
Uh-huh.
but you could drive 45 minutes out of town and be in an area that's really sparse, that no
There you
one's
go.
around, and has Bigfoot activity.
Yeah,
They're talking one of the major population hubs in the world, and you're half hour, 45-minute drive from where people have had encounters that are still really wild in woodlands, like all the wildfires we had to go through recently. Some of
Yeah.
these areas are so rugged they couldn't get people to them to fight them.
Wow.
So it just seems to be kind of the same thing like all over the world. These big population centers, you don't have to go too far away to get into some rough country where these things can make a life. And for me, the classic rule is if there are water sources and there are deer and there are coyotes, it could probably support a Bigfoot. And it's like, from somebody who's never been to the United Kingdom before, just from what I've seen on TV, like like we watch Doc Martin, we watch Top Gear and stuff like that. And when you see these shows like Top Gear, they go on a road trip, and it's like when you see them driving through the English countryside and going up to Scotland and Ireland, and you're like, wow, there's actually a lot of big open spaces. You don't think of it. You just think all
you're seeing is the view from the motorway. You're not seeing the whole thing there. That's just what you can see from the road. With never-ending fields and hills and forests. It's amazing to me, really. I mean, I ran the figures on our livestock, on deer species, on 34 plus million rabbits roaming the country. We've got this big cat problem that we've had since the late 70s. They're seen everywhere now, all over the country, and they're surviving pretty well and rarely being seen. And they are seen frequently, but they're not seen a lot, or as much as they should be, based upon the possible numbers that are out there. I think something that's intelligent, something that's always been here and understands us and the way we work, similarly in America, would be able to most of the time skirt around where we are without making itself known. And also similarly to yourself, the people that do see them, you mentioned this earlier, they're incidental witnesses. They're people who aren't looking. And I think the reason for that is looking looks like hunting. And when you know the forest like we know our own back garden, you see when something is unusual, when there's a trail cam, when somebody's moving towards you, looking for something, and you move away if you're an intelligent animal. And anyways, you think that nobody's paying attention, maybe you come in and have a little look. Right. And that seems, perfect ape-like behavior to me.
Right. And I think there is something to something non-conventional, like a sixth sense, or like like how as a human being you can get the feeling of being watched, even if it is a camera or something.
Yeah.
Or you get creeped out in an old building. I mean, you live in the UK. There's a million old buildings and churches and places that are creepy over there. Same thing here.
Creepy.
Yeah. The old Gothic style. It's like, are you kidding me? I also think that these creatures have something like that, from just call it through evolution or through other means or some kind of creation or something in these creatures where they know it. Where I think the dad who's on a road trip, who stops on the side of the road to go relieve himself in the bushes next to his truck, and looks up and sees something staring at him. I think that's, you're either catching the Bigfoot off guard, or you're both being caught off guard, or it's sometimes, I think in a lot of cases, them showing themselves is like, hey, get the hell out of here.
Well, I think you're on my patch. We had occasion. I don't have the full sighting here in front of me, actually. This was about, I think this was in the 90s at some point, and a lady had come home in sort of a rural setting, semi-rural setting. She'd come home from a night in the town, and she got off the bus, and she decided it was a long walk home, and she was going to relieve herself in the bushes. And she went into the bushes, and this big, orangey auburn coloured creature that was, she said, very emaciated, but man-like, huge, 7 feet tall, reached out and snarled and tried to grab her. And she ran off, and it didn't. Well, it didn't chase her. And there's lots of bluff, charge, and intimidation here. And I did a little blog about that too, but there were no attacks. And there's actually one very interesting story about some children being run out of a forest by a Bigfoot here, or from the other side of a river, and one of them falls and turns around to see that it's halted the chase. It's not chasing him anymore. It's just standing at a distance, waiting. So there was no real intention of harm other than get out.
Right.
Get out of my patch.
I think I would agree with that. I would say 9 times out of 10, maybe 95 times out of 100, they just want you to leave them alone. Like, oh crap, the humans saw me. They know humans are bad news. They know they have guns, and they know that they have dogs, and they know that they have these strange equipment that they bring with them, and they know that they have lights that can light up at night.
Yeah.
They know that humans have fire. So most of the time, the majority of the time, I think they're just trying to get you out of there or scare you out of there. But I do think, like a lot of times, bears false charge people to scare them off. But
Yeah,
occasionally, bears are man eaters, and I think with these
that's right. Yeah.
creatures,
Yeah.
especially here in North America, if we look back to a lot of the Native American tales, you look at Missing 411 and some very
Sure.
impressive encounters. Like,
Yeah.
I think the majority of the time, they're just trying to either avoid you or scare you off. But every once in a while, you get one that's like, I could eat that human, or
I
maybe
think
you saw too much,
with an omnivorous animal, I think it's very possible that
bears
each
eat
animal
people,
is
so
as an individual. So really, I saw
exactly.
this study on great white sharks, and some woman was free swimming with them, and she said, "No, no, not that one. Get out of the water. He's very aggressive." They got out, and then the
Right.
female came in later. No, she's really nice, and let's get back in the water. So they knew that these individuals were very different. It's the same shark, right? But to us as
Well,
humans, we don't think of animals as individuals, do we? We think, well, bears act like this and tigers act like that, and that's just the
well,
way of the world.
well. If you study primates at all, especially Jane Goodall and
Mm,
Diane Fossey, it was the exact same way. They're like,
yeah,
these two jimps are gentle, funny, kind of pranksters. That one over there wants to kill me,
yeah.
and we're talking about like chimpanzees and then much less
Well,
gorillas.
they can kill you. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And there's a lot of stuff like that. It's the same thing with bears. And you hear that a lot in Bigfoot encounters, especially in habituation sites or where families have had a homestead for many generations and they've had families of Bigfoots. And they're like, oh, yeah, the tall, skinny one and the short, fat one are friendly, but the big, giant red one in the back, he's really mean, you know? Or that one creeps me out, but the other two that come around, I don't have a
Yeah,
problem with.
it
You hear
makes
that
perfect
all the
sense.
time, you
Yeah, it
know?
makes perfect sense. And of course, at different times of the year, animals have different needs. And just before winter, animals want to pack on more pounds. Now, as I said, we've never really had those stories of attack here, but some stories of intimidation. I think the environment is very different as well. There's no official predators in this land, and there's a lot of
Game.
game. There's a lot of wild berries and roots. So the food isn't really scarce at any point whatsoever. So I don't
Right.
think that would be an issue, and I think that's the same reason why we haven't had any big cat attacks here, even though they seem to be quite numerous now, because there's plenty to eat.
Right. And that you also got to understand there's from what I've seen, way better than me because you live there. There seems to be a lot of farming and agriculture going on.
But actually,
Uh,
only 25% of the country, 25% of the non-urban space is actual arable crops. The rest
well,
is rough grazing.
that's still quite a bit, though. I mean, especially here in America, like I don't doubt that these things every now and then would take a lamb or a goat
Oh
or
yeah, sure. Yeah,
steal some carrots, or maybe they range to some really remote areas, but every couple of weeks they come down and pick apples, you know,
absolutely.
or a couple times a year if they're really, things are getting cold and game is getting really scarce, they probably come down and steal a goat or something, or a sheep or a calf.
Well,
Um,
I mean,
but
there's thousands of sheep kills that are blamed on dogs every year in this country. So, and we've got 30 million plus sheep, I think, in the
that's a
land.
lot of
So
sheep.
it's a lot. So 10 million of them are in Wales, where I come from. We have a population of 3.5 million people, so that's where the
Wow.
rumor comes from. Anyway, about us and sheep. There is a rumor. Not true. I can confirm it's not true.
Well, I'll
Yeah,
tell you. I'll tell you. If the sheep ever want to rise up, you guys are screwed.
oh, we're pretty much screwed anyway. I mean, you get this little country. I mean, Wales is. I think it's 4.6% of Wales is urban. It's a very even the capital city, Cardiff, where I come from. It's less than 1 million people. It's mean
Right.
450,000 people. So we're a very small nation. One of the joke is that we're one of the smallest ethnic minorities in the UK, including people who've come to the country since.
Right.
It's sort of one of those situations. So it's very hilly. It's very hilly and woody and wet. And so it's all on the coast. And it's just one of those things. You're driving down the road sometimes, and then there's a herd of sheep being marched down to the next field, and you just sit and wait till they all go past.
Well,
There is no way around it.
it's actually like that through a lot of the U.S. A lot, even in California, especially all through Utah and Idaho, especially in
Oh,
Montana. You even in parts of Alaska too. You go back down all these dirt roads. There are these old country roads or barely paved roads and all these farmlands, and there's just cows that just wander across the road. Or you'll be out. My uncle's a forest ranger. He's now retired, but I remember going with him and deep back in the hills of Montana, where it was like an hour drive on a highway and then 45 minutes of bumpy dirt roads and then a 2-hour hike to go survey some trees with him.
Fun.
Yeah, and you're just way in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you're like, probably an hour from the nearest farmhouse. And there'd just be a random cow would come walking through the bushes, It would be pretty gnarly looking, and it had a brand on it. It belonged to somebody, but it was just, and I guess that was kind of a problem, much less besides the bears and everything else, is feral cows and feral bulls live a pretty hard life out there. So, they've been known to chase people too.
Oh,
but yeah, it was just very strange just to be out in the middle of what you seem nowhere, and here just comes this like mangy looking cow wandering through.
Yeah, you have to be careful. Definitely. I mean, if I was passing a field full of cows here, I wouldn't go into that field. They often stampede people. As a protective measure as well, especially if there are calves around, they might come for you. And it's like a ton and a half or whatever it weighs. I'm not really sure. Half a ton. That's gonna kill you.
Yeah. Well, and for me, the big point is, if you're a Bigfoot and you're out in the middle of nowhere and this mangy old cow walks by, why wouldn't you eat it?
Yeah.
Maybe on the other side of it, though, that they've learned if they take a few cows, then the farmers come out looking with guns and it draws too much attention. So maybe they don't do that unless they're really desperate, Because I think these creatures' priority one, other than eating and surviving, is avoiding people. At least that's what it seems like.
It seems to be the same way here as well. I mean, I was a real doubter about this phenomenon here in the UK for a long time until I started looking at the witness sightings, and there are sightings of them chasing deer as well around the country. There was one I was just going to mention very briefly in Staffordshire in England in the 80s, and somebody forced, they had to brake the car to avoid this huge deer that crossed the road, and it was followed by what looked like a large chimpanzee, came bounding after it, and halfway across the road, it looks directly at the couple and starts to charge their vehicle. And the guy in the car, he stalls the car, so they're stuck there, and for the next 20 seconds, it just keeps charging them again and again. They say it was like a giant chimp on 2 legs, bipedal, and it just was so angry at them. And then finally, bounded off in the direction that the stag went.
Wow, that's a pretty incredible story. The thing that strikes me, and you keep repeating, is what percentage would you say people describe them as being very chimpanzee-like? Would you say roughly?
I think it's low. Actually, I think that's in the 2 to 3%. And this is the issue I have because some.
So they don't. So the majority don't look like chimpanzees.
No, they don't.
Oh, okay.
Most people say they look like an ape with the body of a man, very large and muscular.
Like a mountain gorilla blown up on 2 legs, right?
Yeah, but with this man,
like a King Kong type thing,
like a King Kong with this man-like face that often has a separation of features, nose and mouth, but with a wide jutting jaw, very wide jutting jaw. Some people describe sort of less of a less hair around the top of the chest, and others describe it just being hairy all over. But having less of a hairy face, that they tend to not have a very hairy face here, most of the time anyway. But that's
fascinating.
Yeah, and the problem again is, as I described, is because people don't have Bigfoot on the brain here, they're often using something from their mental library to describe what they saw instead of giving it an accurate description. So when they say chimp, I just think that's all they could put to it when they saw it. This is 1986, and nobody's going to even know about Bigfoot here.
Well, and you actually find that in the U.S. up until probably the mid-'90s, Bigfoot wasn't really in a lot of people's lexicon, or they heard of Bigfoot and they thought there was one in the Pacific Northwest.
Exactly.
So when they saw one in Texas or in Kentucky or Louisiana or something, they didn't think it was a Bigfoot. They just thought it was some hairy monster, And it's only in the last few years that people see them all over the place now associated with Bigfoot. So.
No, I think that sounds very, very, very similar to what we have here. Of course, even amongst the researchers here in the UK, the concept of Bigfoot is still very, very taboo. The other cryptozoologists, or fortunes, I suppose, especially, would like to think of it more as a paranormal thing. But the
Right.
460, 70 sightings we have, they all have very animalistic behaviors. So they're old with young, they're chasing prey, they're eating things, they're doing animal-like things as they go
Right.
about their day. And they don't seem to be very paranormal in nature to me. There was one thing I wanted to ask you about, actually, which was, have you done any work regarding cases of infrasound? People have experienced some sort of what they would describe as infrasound involved with their interactions with these creatures.
Not where okay, I have had a few people contact me that have experienced strange things that seem to be on par with infrasound, where they felt sudden fear, or they felt really hot on a cold day,
Oh yeah,
or they got really bad headache in an area, or they would
yeah,
go. I had one person tell me that they would go hiking in a certain area, and every time they got passed down around the bend of the one corner in this rarely used trail, they got a headache and creeped out. Every time they went in there, they got a
uh-huh.
headache and they got super creeped out. And for me, I'm like, well, it's probably a Bigfoot using some kind of infrasound to drive you off without
Yeah,
having to resort to a physical means. But as far as direct research, for a long time, I worked in maintenance and building engineering,
okay,
and worked a lot around giant air handlers and chiller units and pumps and every kind of major equipment you
yeah,
can think of for manufacturing. And when you get into higher levels of engineering, especially in building structures, there's a whole subcategory for ultrasound and
uh,
infrasound. Because say you've got a 10-story building with a bunch of machines on top that heat and cool the place.
yeah,
The top floor could be right above the CEO's office, could be some giant machine running, spinning away up there. And that guy is always getting headaches, or always feeling cold, or always feeling with an upset stomach or something.
yeah,
And it turns out that machine is spinning and reacting with the metal it's mounted to, and reacting with the building to produce a very slight frequency that you can't hear, but you can feel, and it's making you feel sick. And it's a real phenomenon, and it's a common thing. And elephants and large crocodiles and
yeah,
tigers and all the animal kingdom, whales too, they already know that they can produce infrasound, and some of them can use it to, like whales and stuff, can use it to stun fish and things. So you get a very large upright primate, 8, 9, 10 feet tall, with 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 pounds, with huge lung capacity, and it's like, sure, I could see that being plausible.
yeah, yeah. Me too. I mean, we did have. I investigated here in the UK. Of course, there's tales of people feeling uneasy, but you can also put that down to being aware of something watching you, and then having an experience afterwards of one of these creatures. And I also listened to one or two of the yowiehunters.com sightings of people having interactions with yowie and having this uneasy or very unusually terrified feeling before suddenly seeing one. Here, there was a researcher actually here called Neil Young up in Harwood Forest, and himself and another guy called Neil Robson. They've been looking for Bigfoot up there for a long time. Neil's had 2 sightings, so always up in this big forest, and putting their recorders down. And I think they had the Zoom H4n recorder probably, and they went to this area. And anyway, Neil said, "You know what? I suddenly got really, really creeped out, and so did the other Neil, but both Neils. And we decided to leave and go back and sleep in the car and leave the recorder out and come out in the morning. But we had planned, because we had activity in this area, to stay here. He said we didn't know why we left, but we left. We just sort of said, no, I don't feel right. Let's go." And we came
Right.
back the next day, and they had recorded some infrasound, which I've got a recording of on this Zoom H4n recorder, and it's very low. It's below 20 Hz. It's very interesting. There's nothing
Wow.
out in our forest that we know of that could make that sound. And also for a hardcore researcher like Neil, one of the first in the UK, he's been out there since 2002, to say, no, I'm not sticking around tonight. Well, let's go back and leave the area where we're having activity, is unusual. So I felt like, and he did too, that this had been used against them and against their better senses as researchers, to say, wait a minute, we're getting some activity and some infrastructure, let's stay. They left without knowing why. And that to me is
Well,
very interesting.
yeah, and I think just in general human psychology, if you get disoriented or
Mm,
suddenly tired or confused, your first reaction is to kind of go back to a safe place, your car, your campsite, sit down. Yeah. So I think just even if you start feeling weird or uneasy, your very first reaction is to leave and go to what is some kind of a relative safety, like your car, your tent, your house, your hotel room.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's just and if these creatures exploit that, I think that they know that, and they've probably been using it for thousands of years. That maybe they're not making the direct connection of I make these noises and I'm producing this noise to make them go back to where they came from, to flee to safety. All they know is they make the noise or do whatever, and it makes them get all weird and hesitant and go away.
As a desired effect.
Yeah. Kind of like the same way tigers and other things use it. Because like crocodiles use infrasound, and they have tiny little brains. They're not actively thinking, well, if I hit this one frequency right, this one guy over here is going to do this. No, they just make the noise, and they like see the reaction of it. So yeah, it's the whole infrasound thing. And there's other people thinking that it might not necessarily be infrasound. It might be something more like electromagnetic, because all human beings are basically and all animals are like an electrical system. So maybe it could be some kind of EMP or something.
Oh, so people are thinking that's the same reason that cameras malfunction and other things.
Right. That they have some kind of a way of controlling something else, or in conjunction with infrasound. I mean, it could be. Who knows? I mean, there's just so little we don't know about these things.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And I think that leads to, especially here in America, the government cover-up. Is I think that I don't know what it is, but there's something to these creatures that doesn't make sense in nature, either whether it be infrasound or electromagnetic or some kind of psychic ability or something very strange we don't get.
So do you think that your government is covering up evidence of of these animals, that they're aware of it?
Absolutely.
This is, by the way, I'm only questioning you on this because this is an area I know nothing about. Because the classic British cover-up, as we have with the big cats, for example, is just to say nothing. That's their cover-up, because it's like the English power of diminishing the importance of something. You just don't mention it. And that's what happens with our big cats. So there's a big cat sighting, the government's also for comment, or the local wildlife officers or the council, and they say nothing. And
that's kind of like, that seems like a classic British thing. Like, oh my God, did the Queen just pass gas? Don't say anything. Yeah. It's the Queen, Like exactly. It seems like that. Like that's kind of the classic British is, we just kind of carry on. We don't say anything, and we just don't talk about them.
But no, you're right. In that sense, we don't. But it's even for something. And there are plenty of bits of film of big cats and photographs and prints as well in the UK. But if you mention it,
tons of them.
Even a big cat, people that will think you're quite strange for having that experience. And I think as a very conservative society, and I know the Canadians suffer with the same phenomenon, cultural phenomenon as well. People here don't want to go on record even for big cats, never mind Bigfoot or anything else like that. But sorry, you were saying about the government and the reason you think it's covered up. I interrupted you.
Oh, well, I think that kind of goes along too, kind of a little sidebar there is, in a lot of areas in the United States, and the vast majority of people in the United States, they're driving home late at night and they see a Bigfoot run across the road. They're not going to tell anybody. Most of the people that come to me with encounters, 99.9% of them, they don't want their real name or their profession.
No way.
Yeah, and it's a lot like that, especially in very rural areas, people that live out in the country and farmers and everything else, especially in the United States, where they've had, my great-grandfather talked about these creatures. We've always known they're there. We leave them alone. They leave us alone. And they just kind of accept it. They don't talk about it, other than maybe, don't go out at night kind of a thing. The boogeyman will get you. But yeah, that's very classic all over the place. Maybe even more so in England, because it seems less plausible on the surface that you guys would have.
It's not even in the vernacular, people's vernacular. We had another sighting here that was passed to me in the Black Country, which is kind of around where Birmingham is, in the center of the country there. And one of our Bigfoot researchers was up there, sort of checking out a pathway, just actually walking in the wild. So he's also heavily into wildlife, checking on some owl boxes that he'd put up there. And he had one of these Gone Squatching t-shirts on. And he saw an old man walking a dog. And the guy said, do you believe that? And he said, yes. He said, well, meet me in the cafe later. He went to meet this guy with his wife. And they both told him about how they were stalked in this same forest here. I think for several minutes, while they were walking the
Wow.
dog, by a large bipedal, hairy man that was ducking behind trees and following them. And they'd never heard about this phenomenon. They don't even use the internet. They're very old.
Right.
And they live in this small rural town in the countryside. Who they're going to tell? And once they told them about what happened, they managed to get out of the forest. They took a path out, and they looked back, and it was in the doorway, the entrance to the deeper canopy, looking at them. And it was
that's scary.
7 feet tall, all black, covered in hair. Couldn't see the face exactly. And this man's wife was breaking down and saying, I'm so glad I can tell somebody about this. We thought we were mad. We couldn't tell anybody. And I thought that's very interesting, how many other rural people or people in these small towns see something like that. They were an old person, they were a dog walker, or they were a teacher or somebody professional, police, a judge. Who are you going to tell? Nobody.
Right.
And I often thought about the same thing myself. When we've been out there talking about that torch standing effect again, I always joke to people when we're going out looking for things, let's hope we don't find anything. Because if we do, we're finished.
Right. Well, that's always like when I take friends out with me and like my whole YouTube channel, they're like, oh, so what are you going to do if you get good, clear, video or photos of Sasquatch? And I'm like, think very, very, very hard before I actually released it. And but then if I made a video saying, hey, I've got wonderful, great, clear footage, but I'm not going to release it, that's going to piss people off even more.
Oh, no way. Nobody's going to be happy with that.
But and even if I did have good clear footage of the other thing with Todd Standing stuff is a good clear body shot where you could see the proportions, because
that would be better.
Yeah, where you could see, hey, the arm length doesn't match a guy in a suit. The waist to where the knees and the hips and the bone build and the structure and the mass of it, and like you see, like in the like the famous Patterson Gimlin film. That's why people say Patty's fake, and I'm like, there's no way it's fake. Once you start looking at the proportions and the mass of it and how it was walking, like there's no way it's fake. But
musculature, nothing else.
Oh yeah, so if I had like Patterson Gimlin type quality footage, I would have to think very long and hard about what I did with it. And then when you start getting back to the government cover-up thing, there's lots of stories of people having them on their property and people coming out and going, yeah, you saw a bear if you know what's good for you. And or people, researchers having good evidence and it disappearing off their laptops, or they produce this good evidence and it disappears, or their evidence gets discredited, or they're your classic, like your phone conversations and people are following them around, and their wife, or they get pulled over all the time for seemingly nothing on the highway, and just kind of general harassment. So if I had really great so if I had really great footage, I would have to think long and hard on what to do with it.
I feel the same. You've got children, I've got children as well, and they think they're 5 and 2 at the moment. They think it's really cute that daddy's going out looking for the Yeti. That's what they call it. Going looking for the Yeti. Daddy, are you going to find the Yeti this weekend? Yes, I'm going to find a Yeti. And it's
that's very cool.
It's just a very curious thing, and I think very carefully about, well, actually, if I was going to make such a claim, I would have to consider that. And I often thought that actually probably what I would do is release it anonymously on many, many platforms, so it could just spread around, with a background, and just let it be there, but not attached to me. Because if it's about evidence, then everybody else can sort of fight it out as they go along, and I don't have to suffer for that. Or my family, more correctly, wouldn't have to suffer for it. But what on another point, in regards to your government possibly covering these things up, why do you think they would cover it up? I don't understand that reason.
I think it's a many-tiered reason. Kind of like, why do you clean your house, or why do you keep your car cleaned? Why do you brush your teeth? There's more than one obvious reason for why you do these things. And I think with the government, the United States government, and probably to a lesser extent the Canadian government, is just the very superficial things. Is that if they came out with the truth of it, they would say, well, what's the habitat of these creatures? There'd have to be protections. It would
Yeah,
go against the logging industry, the
I heard
tourist
that looking.
industry, national parks. We need to research. We need to fund these things, and that's a very low level. Then I think somewhere in between there, there's okay. Well, if these things are very large, they could be potentially dangerous. My so and so went missing last year, and 3 years ago, this guy went missing, and this guy went missing, and all these missing people, and all these attacks that were done by a quote unquote unknown animal in parts of the countries that don't have bears. It would really start to raise a lot of suspicion, and I think the government would be responsible or sued liability-wise for having.
So it's just easier to keep stum basically, and keep the status quo as it is. You know, with the nutcases like us, you know, the alleged nutcases go out looking for these things and nobody believes them. They're private grown-up boy hobby, and the government keeps saying, well, you know, it's like aliens, you know, flat earthers, that kind of thing.
Right, and I think at the very top, though, I think there's something about these creatures. Like, I don't know what it is, but there's something about these creatures that the government doesn't want us to know. More so than threatening logging and tourist industry. More so than missing people. And,
there's another aspect.
There's something else there. I don't know what it is. You hate to use the word paranormal or supernatural or something ability or some kind of creation or going back biblically. There's something, there's some kind of a big mystery to these things.
Well, look, like I always make the point about talking about supernatural things, you know, but the first person to see an octopus, you know, mask itself against a rock would have thought that was a magical power. But now we understand how it works. Or chameleon changed color. It's not magic. We know how it works, but it would appear to be supernatural to the uninitiated.
Right. Well, like if you grew up your entire life in England in the Middle Ages, and you went to Australia for the first time, and no one told you about saltwater crocodiles, you'd be like, "There's a damn dragon here," you know? Dragon. Yeah, or a serpent or whatever you want to call it.
Kangaroos.
So, yeah. There's this giant two-legged rat.
The giant mouth that jumps.
Yeah, and they're like, yeah, okay, buddy.
Yeah, sure, you saw a 6 foot tall mouse. Okay, carry on. It was jumping. Okay, I'm with you. Yeah, okay, sure. All the guys in the white coats. That's what I love about cryptids, by the way. It's the ones that have been found. So when you talk about the giant squid, for instance, I always say to people, yeah, that was the kraken until a few years ago.
Oh yeah.
That was the kraken, and now we've got footage, everything. They wash up on the beaches. Like, yeah, you see one in the museum. Oh look, giant squid. That's the same as saying like, oh look, Bigfoot. Oh yeah, sure. It's that amazing. It was that extraordinary, and yet it's just passé now. You know, it's part of the taxa. You know, it's in the books. That's amazing.
It was the same thing with mountain gorillas 130 years ago. They were like these big giant monkey things that live in the woods that are man-like but are 300 and 400 pounds. They're like, yeah, okay.
Ridiculed. They were ridiculed.
Oh yeah, and yeah, it's pretty. I mean, I've got a couple of Sasquatch T-shirts and stuff like that, and it's kind of funny. Something similar to happened. We had a little our Tustin Tiller Days. It's like a local community carnival fair where they have concerts and foods and carnival games and all that. And yeah. I mean, I was down there one day, me and my wife, and I think we were getting nachos or a hot dog, something very classic American there, junk food. And I'm standing there in line, and there's a guy with his 2 kids in front of me, and he's like, I'm wearing a Bigfoot T-shirt. And he's like, oh, Bigfoot. And he said, yeah. Oh, I could tell he was being kind of, being kind of smart about it. He's like, oh, have you ever seen Bigfoot? And I'm like, I don't know this guy, and I'm trying to be nice. I'm like, yeah, I've had a couple of strange encounters in the woods. And he said, oh, yeah? And I said, I've actually got a YouTube channel about it. And this is when I was first starting out. And he looked at me, and he was a bit older. He was probably in his early 50s. He was kind of a dad, kind of a no-nonsense, 9 to 5 kind of a general guy. And he just kind of looked at me in a very adult tone, like, they don't exist, right? Like with the most certainty, like no, there's no monster in your closet. No, there's no monster under the bed. Yeah,
come on, baby boy. Come on now, join us up here on the adult table. It's time you start believing these things. Listen, what's really funny about that is when I post these blogs out now and again. So I'm doing a 6-part series on the British Bigfoot at the moment. So when I
Excellent.
posted this blog, so I've done the first two, and I post it on all the Bigfoot pages. That's the only other thing that's the only thing I ever share on everything. I share this on everything because I like to get some feedback. I love the people that say, "Sorry, pal, there is no British Bigfoot. Get over it." And I'm just like, and I always say, "Thank you for that compelling piece of evidence. I'll take it under advisement." You know?
I get that. I get that all the time, even
Yeah.
here, even here in the United States.
Yeah.
I get that all the time. So much so that a couple months ago, I made a video called "Bigfoot Compelling Evidence" because I'd make some theory video about, like, are they the Nephilim or something? And I got to remind people, just because I make a video about it, it isn't
Yes.
what I personally believe. I'm just exploring a topic.
Investigation.
Right. It's not necessarily what I believe, but this is kind of what the consensus of what's going on concerning this theory. Anyway, and I'll just get somebody like, well, why are you talking about Nephilim or even the 10 different types or the four different types when there's no such thing as Bigfoot in the first place?
Yeah.
And I just got so frustrated of going, yeah, footprints, hair samples, DNA samples, scat, photographic evidence, video evidence, irrefutable audio evidence, tens of thousands of years of native traditions, modern day witnesses from all walks of life. I'm like, yeah, there's no evidence here, buddy. You know, I mean, it's just really frustrating because it shows their ignorance, not yours, really quickly.
It's just about, listen, I'm an adult. I know what's real and what's not real. And I'm just letting you know here, by the way, that what you think is real is not real. You're wasting your time. And it's a very strange thing to say to somebody because obviously it's very aggressive. And on the internet, of course, people feel bolder. And what did I say to one guy one time? I said, listen, only arseholes comment. And then said, oops, I've commented too. So I guess we're on the same plane here. And it's, it's just one of these funny things that people just get up, you're not feeling too good. Some guy posts something, it irritates me. I'll just give him a bit of a verbal kicking here. And I'll give this guy a verbal kicking and be on my way. Happy days. And that's what you're dealing with most of the time. I normally do one reply, if it's reasonable, the initial question. And then if you can tell if it's going a bit sour, and they say, okay, let's leave it here. Thanks for getting in touch, etc., etc. But it's a funny thing, essentially, if this was the 19th century, you're an explorer. You're going out there trying to find new things, right?
Right.
And surely that's admirable. If nothing else, you're out there in the forest enjoying yourself and being a part of nature, and respecting it. So that's a good thing in itself, even if you find nothing. You've been out in the woods this whole time.
Well, that's how some people go camping or rock climbing or backpacking or hunting or paintballing or whatever it is that they like to go do outdoors. For me, that's a lot what it is too. It's a chance to go out with my buddies and go explore the woods, have a beer, grill a steak, tell some stories. We're all married with kids and everything else and work, so it's a chance for us to kind of get away. And Bigfoot is kind of an excuse to do that. I mean, we want to do some research. We want to look into this. We're fascinated by it. But it's also an excuse to get together and do this stuff, And just kind of like if you like hiking, it's like, well, Bigfooting is essentially hiking with some investigation,
Yeah, exactly.
And but going back to what you said about internet comments, it was really interesting. I was listening to this the psychological profiles about internet. And psychologically, when you get a compliment in real life, like someone says, hey, you look nice today, or have you lost weight, or, oh, I saw your video in person, and they say, I really loved it. You feel, well, thank you. You feel good about yourself.
Okay.
When someone gives you a compliment online, it does not have the same effect as it does in person. It's just, doesn't stimulate. Yes, it doesn't stimulate the endorphins and the serotonin and all the good stuff. But a negative comment online has the same effect as somebody saying it in real life. So, and I noticed that too on my YouTube. I'll get 100 comments, all positive. Matt, love your work, great guy, keep it up, and some interesting questions or follow-up questions that I'll respond to. And then there'll just be one guy going, "You're wasting your time. You're an idiot." And then that bums me out. It's like 1 out of 100 comments, and that one bums me out.
But it's funny how it gets to affect you. I mean, I've only just started becoming slightly active on YouTube. I'm about to do lots of little videos and things, but I've mainly done blogs and Facebook and interviews with other people on their
You're
show.
all over the place, by the way. It
Yeah,
seems
no.
like it seems like wherever I go, Beast of Britain, Beast of Britain. And I'm like, oh, this guy's getting real popular. So.
I'm a shameless self-promoter, actually. But
Oh, me
in
too.
this,
Me too.
just in the friendly sense of the word, I just love to talk about it, and I don't, I hopefully don't pretend to know more than anybody else. I just have ideas, and like we're talking about now, it's just an exchange of ideas, and that's a nice
Right.
thing. Um, what I really do love, and what I loved about being in the US, for example, recently was there was just so much, and I know this is not the actual truth of the station, but there was so much more colleagueship going on between a lot of people, mutual appreciation and colleagueship. And I actually
Camaraderie. Yeah.
camaraderie. And I actually, as a country, maybe it was just the places I had 9 flights while I was in there, internal flights. Maybe it's the places I visited, but I thought that the people were incredibly polite. The first thing that freaked me out, not when I landed in Orlando, because that was British people getting off the plane, but when
Right.
I flew to, I think the first place was Atlanta, then I had to fly up to Portland after that.
Right.
When the plane landed, everybody got up and waited for the person in front of them to get off the plane before they tried to leave. I'd never seen that, not once, not ever.
I will
Freaked me
say,
out.
yeah, I will say as a Californian with a lot of people here and
Uh-huh.
around LA, that people are generally unfriendly. It's
Yeah,
just kind
same.
of like road rage. Everybody's in a hurry.
Ah,
Just kind of the big city attitude where
yeah, get the same thing.
you're walking down the street, you're in the grocery store, and you smile at a nice looking lady, and she just gives you a look like you pervert. And I'm like, I'm just smiling at you, lady. You know. But you get out of town, you even don't have to go that far, and you're just driving down a road, and people are waving at you, and you're like, "What are they waving at you?"
Oh,
And they're
they'd be
like,
the opposite car. Hi,
"Yeah,
how you
yeah,
doing?
they're just waving, hey, buddy,"
Yeah.
Or you stop at a World gas station, and people are just talking to you, and yeah,
Oh, it's
and
nice. It's nice. I mean, people in Vermont, New Hampshire, they were really
oh,
friendly.
very
I
salt of the earth, very just good folks,
definitely.
and I think in a lot of ways, I'm generally a conservative guy, pretty politically, and I think
Same.
is and I think as you kind of as in some societies and some settings get more away from traditional family values, more away from general kind of conservative values, and get so more progressive, it kind of isolates you a little bit more and more, and kind of makes you a little more afraid, or
Yeah.
you think
I mean, the
everybody's
family
after
unit
something.
is what teaches us to care about each other and therefore then
Exactly.
the world. So I would think that makes perfect sense that the more isolated from that unit we are, that we would be less caring.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny how we get isolated from that in a bigger group of people, like you
Yeah,
internalize more,
that's
which
right.
I think kind of goes back to Bigfoot too, where it's like you live in a big city with everything going on and you're surrounded by people and you just think that's the way life is, and you don't
Uh,
realize that a couple hours out of town is the middle of nowhere and strange creatures live in those woods.
exactly. And in
You
our
really,
case, not even a few hours, we're talking 30 minutes out and you're there.
it's a lot like that here too. I mean, I'm in Orange County with 5 million people, and it's basically one big city from edge to edge of our county. And then
Wow.
going into LA County, pretty much from the edge of Orange County, which is kind of nothing out there, to almost almost completely out of town, going up the Grapevine. It's one big solid city. But where I am in Orange County, I could go on a 15-minute drive and be in Santiago Canyon and go to all these rural areas.
Oh,
And
wow.
I mean, I'm like a 15 or 20-minute drive from the countryside. And it amazes me that I know people that have lived here for 30 years that have, like, you've never been to Trabuco Canyon, which is right down the road with all these glorious old oak trees and
I know,
forest and
it's so
deer and
funny.
raccoons. And they're like, yeah, I didn't even know this was here. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, but that's the same person who's convinced that Bigfoot doesn't exist. So,
Of course, because you're not out there looking. Now, I know I've kept you on here a long time, actually, but I
yeah,
just want to ask you about one last thing before we go, maybe 10 minutes or something,
sure,
which
take as
was,
long as you want. So,
oh, great. Well, that's fantastic. Well, I was just interested in your take on werewolf or the dogman. So we've got, similarly to yourselves in the US, we have reports here, but they're
they're
in a
all over the
smaller.
world, actually.
They are, and they're in a smaller percentage than the Bigfoot reports. And I think that's a similar thing there in the US as well. But what we have described mostly seems, I'd say, werewolf-like, although the physical bodies of the creature are more like Bigfoot.
Right.
which is, to me is more like one of your types, right? But the head is very canine. It's very wolf-like. Um, and I was investigating one recently in Camberwell, Camberwell Cemetery in southeast London. You know, it's right in the centre, but it's surrounded by all these big green spaces and parks are very close. And that was in the 90s when you might have heard this one before actually, where a guy was cutting through the cemetery to save time. It's really old. I took pictures there. You know, there's forest that's grown over half of the graves. There's 10 acres of forest in there, and he was thrown to the ground by this huge man-like creature, grabbed him by the arm,
Jeez.
and had a head like a German shepherd,
Oh my
looking at him
God.
and slobbering in and sniffing him all up and down. And this area is a little bit rough too, so you know you're already on your guard, I think.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
yeah, so you know, it's just that as quick as the attack started, it finished and it ran off on its hind legs. And he believed, this witness, and he was spared because he suffers from a disease that dogs can smell,
Oh.
which is kind of strange. And then I published this little investigation recently, and somebody got in touch with me and said, I'm Irish and I used to live in, but I used to live in Camberwell and next to the old cemetery. And myself and a friend were walking past there one night, not too many years back, and we saw you heard this horrible growling. You saw a huge tree being shaken quite violently within the graveyard, and we ran and we got out of there. We had such a terrible feeling. So I mean, that's just one of quite a few reports. But I just wonder what's
Right.
your take on the whole werewolf dogman thing, differentiation, etc.
I think people are definitely seeing something. I think they are a real flesh and blood creature. There are reports of them scratching, eating, hunting, doing the things that a creature does. Not as much as Bigfoot. There seems to be a lot more, you know, hey, it came out of the fog and growled at me and then disappeared
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Even a lot more than Bigfoot.
More
Personally,
aggressive.
yeah, well, you look at a Bigfoot and you're like, well, this is an apex predator that could possibly be explained through evolution. You look at a dogman and you're like,
Yeah,
this was built for something. This was intimidation, terror, hunting. This is completely unnatural. If Bigfoot is slightly unnatural, it's completely unnatural. And I think for me personally, I have no real evidence to back this up or whatever. I feel like with Bigfoot, it is a flesh and blood creature, a natural creature that has been here for thousands of years, that eats and breeds and does its thing. And they've got a very slight paranormal side to them. They've got a side to them that we don't understand, hence the government cover up.
yeah,
Some kind of connection or ability or something that we don't quite get. Or there's something maybe connected to another phenomenon. Some people say alien, some people say interdimensionalism. I don't
yeah.
know. Bigfoot has that, where they're, you know, a very cunning, large creature that lives in the woods that's a master of its domain. But they have a very strange side to them. Where I think when you cross into Dogman, to me, the more I hear, and I've heard lots of encounters and heard lots of different things and talked to lots of different people, they almost seem like they're a physical manifestation of a demon. Like, you know, maybe they're real creatures and they breed and they run in packs, but there's just something like if Bigfoot's, you know, 95% normal creature and 5% something, the Dogman's like 50-50. There's just so much more strangeness, evil, engineered, demonic going on with them. This is, I think you cross over. So for me, I break cryptids into three categories, and you as a crypto researcher, like the first category is like your big cats, or like
Yeah.
in,
Out
or
of place
like,
animals.
yeah, or like in Ohio, they're not supposed to have mountain lions, but they do.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
or hey, you know, the Tasmanian devil, people still see him way out in the middle of nowhere. You know, level two, I think, is like your Bigfoots, maybe some of your lake monsters, maybe some of your big giant fish that shouldn't be in a pond, and undiscovered species. A very real creature that's undiscovered. Then I think like a type 3 cryptid is like your dog man or this goat man that people see, or some of these very strange out there like the Loveland frog and the Enfield horror. The Mothman is a perfect example of, it's like you get into this category and it's like, I think we're out of cryptozoology, which is not parapsychology. I think cryptozoology, undiscovered species, and I think when you get into the dog man and the mothman and some of this weird stuff. I think you've crossed over into a paranormal creature from another dimension, another planet, engineered species, the physical manifestation of a demon, all of the above, none of the above. I think you cross over when you start talking to a dog man, and that's just kind of the conclusion I've come to.
No, that makes that's very interesting actually. And do you think that because people talk about different types of a dog man, which are being a sort of mistaken for a type of Bigfoot that has that muzzle, that long muzzle, and a werewolf, which is often described in some cases as you know, was this upright wolf essentially with wolf-like legs, but completely upright. And that's correct. As far as I'm aware, that werewolf type with the wolf, the upright wolf with the wolf-like body isn't really described here. It's more like a big, hairy Bigfoot with a dog-like head, or a werewolf-like head.
Well, the natives, the natives call them like a gugwe, or it's even commonly called like a face eater, and they're all bad news.
Face eater does sound bad, yes.
Yes, something called face eater does not sound nice. And from described here in North America, they're very rare. They're in the Missouri River Basin, mostly going up into Canada. They're kind of lone hunters. They don't really travel in packs. But if you look at some describe one that look like a gorilla, some describe one that look like a chimpanzee. For me, these have a connection to that they look like a mandrill or a
baboon.
Baboon. Yeah, I'm sorry, it just escaped me. Yeah, like a mandrill or a baboon. And it's kind of strange for whatever reason that we have these different Bigfoot varieties that kind of resemble known apes. And, well, we have one that's big and aggressive that has big, nasty teeth and a snout. Well, what does that sound like in the animal kingdom? Yeah. So, I think there's a differentiation there, and there are different types of dogmen. Some people describe ones that look very spotted hyena-like, that almost have like a feline look to them here in America. And then other people describe like the upright German Shepherd, like the classic dog man. And then other people describe like the face eater gugwe, where it looked like a Bigfoot body, but with like a big baboon head on it, So seems like there's a lot of crazy stuff going on out there.
I mean, it really does. I mean, and the land is as large as the USA as well. There's a lot more space for these types of things to hide away, and perhaps if they're solitary predators, they'll be seen less often. That makes sense. That would be the case. Here, it's like I say, it's generally the werewolf type creature. It's the man-like body with the dog or wolf-like head, often observed running on 4 legs and then standing up, or running on all 4s and then standing up onto 2 legs as it gets closer to its target.
It almost seems to me, you get a lot of reports of that, of on 4 legs, and that's a big dog, and then it stands up. Yeah. It almost seems to me like they do it on purpose. Like, hey, I'm going to run on all 4s. Watch me freak out this human even more. Yeah. It almost seems like they're doing it intentionally. I
think the all 4s, 2 legs, I'm as freaked out by these creatures.
Oh, God, yeah.
So we asked the question, just finally, and I want to ask you this question so we can maybe wrap up here on this. So when I was out with the researcher, the question I always pose is, okay, so here we are looking for Bigfoot, out by ourselves at night in the forest. Do you want to see one? Do you want to have that face-to-face with an animal that the creature is an individual animal that has to make a decision about what to do about bumping into you, as much as you have to make that decision about what to do about bumping into it, right? You're both stood there. You're in that situation where in the reality of that moment, you don't really know what's going to happen, life or death. And that's the reality of facing a creature that could easily disassemble you, whether it intends to or not. What is your take on it? Do you want to have that experience? Do you want to have that face-to-face, up close with this creature, or no?
Short answer is yes. But I'm a big preacher of exactly what you said. You don't get to pick your encounter. Yeah. As much as you'd love to see it run across the road or through a spotting scope, it's probably going to be feet from you, growling at you, and you're going to be, relieving yourself in your pants, and it's going to be very scary. I feel as time goes on and I get into the subject more and more, as much as that would probably be a horrible experience, I feel like it would, because I've had encounters with Bigfoots, or what I think was Bigfoots, but I've never actually seen one up close.
Yeah.
I've been on the other sides of trees with them. I've heard the 800-pound owls. I've had tree knocks. I've had the sides of house thumps. I've had some strange encounters in the woods.
Okay.
I've had rocks thrown at me while out hunting, and been trailed out by something that I couldn't tell what it was on two legs. Like, I'm certain it was a Bigfoot, but I have never seen one clearly. I've even as far as to seen large shadows in the dark.
Okay.
And I shine from a flashlight, but I have never seen one clearly or up close. Part of me is like, I don't know if I want to see one.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it would be absolute truth, as horrible as the truth can be.
Yeah.
In that sense, you know, like, truth isn't beauty.
And it is just a moment, you know. I mean, assuming you survive it, it's just a moment.
Yeah, and I think it would be life-changing.
No.
But short answer is yes. Yes, I think I would like to see one up close. If that never happens, that's okay, and I'm probably better off.
Yeah.
You know, it's you know, it's like a soldier goes to war. He doesn't want to kill anybody, but you know, if he does, he has to, and he will, because he's a soldier and that's his duty. If I really have no desire to be within a few feet of a Bigfoot, but like I said, I can't control it. So if I was just going to say,
like, of course, there's a discreditation aspect as well. Like, the guy who's always going out looking for Bigfoot finds it. You know, how surprising, that kind of thing. So we're back to how would you release that incident to the world, etc. Really, isn't it?
Yeah, if it was just me having an encounter, like I wasn't recording anything, I would just make a video about it. I would just put a camera on a desk and do like an interview style, which I haven't done in a long time. And I would just start from the beginning and tell the whole story and describe details. Maybe go on Sasquatch Chronicles or something, or go back as a guest on your show and describe what I saw. Now, if I had evidence, that would be a different story. But if it was just me having a face-to-face encounter with it, I would just tell my story. And if people want to believe it, they can. And people don't want to believe it, that's fine too. Much like I've been doing already.
No, I think that's very valid. I personally, for me, man, I would like to have the experience through the through the scope at a distance, but I rather feel that what we have here has had a long time to be around us, and I'd say 99.9% of every single sighting in this country is via an incidental witness. Somebody with no interest in Bigfoot, that was not looking for it and never heard of it. So I doubt that will happen to me in this country, at least, anyway. Just before we go, is there anything you've got coming up? Any books, any talks, anything that you want to just mention?
I don't really have any talks planned currently. I'm always open. If anybody ever wants to have me be a guest speaker, I'm more than open to do it. Number of different podcasts, little tiny podcasts, and different people have asked me to be a guest, and I basically don't turn anybody down. It's winter time here, but I would like to get out and do some more field work. I mean, other than just working on videos, doing what I'm doing, just growing my channel and reading and talking to people. Nothing too big on the horizon right now, but I think next year things are going to pick up. I've already had a couple people contacted me, interested in me being a guest speaker at a conference or two, and I said, well, when you get the date and it's official, let me know, then I'll come out. You know, people trying to put together stuff. Which I
understand that completely. You know, you have to have a schedule. I'd love to see you speak sometime. Obviously, we get to do it on YouTube as well, which is really nice. But I've enjoyed your videos for quite a while now, and I feel like I've learned a lot from them. So thank you for that.
Yeah. That's the one thing that strikes me about the public speaking engagements is how much I learn. You know, it's kind of like the whole thing. If you want to know something really well, teach it. Is how much I learned giving public speaking is the questions being asked and me talking to a crowd and seeing their reactions and their interpretations of it, how much it's made me think or rethink something, you know? So, I mean, it's definitely both ways. And it's kind of like, I don't like to give a lecture as much as like have a conversation, even like with a crowd.
Yeah, no, same, exactly the same. I don't think I mean, even in all of my talks, I don't think I was giving lectures. I wasn't able to, really. I just had to. It's a stream of consciousness, hopefully ordered in some sort of understandable way, really, isn't it? Well, I think we should sign off here, but I really, really appreciate this, and I'll pop this up on the channel in a few days. And thank you so much for coming on. I've had a great chat.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun. It was very interesting. Anytime you want to have me back on or talk about something else or one specific subject or footage you want to dissect together, let me know, man. I'll come back on. So
That much I would really, really like, and I might even just send you a couple of private messages for an opinion, on the odd piece of
absolutely.
information.
Okay.
Thanks so
All
much,
right.
Matt.
All right.
Okay,
Bye.
happy holidays.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye.